Okay, Shalom Chevra. We're going to dedicate this shir, the Siyata Deshmaya, to the Ilui Nishmas of Netanel ben Aryeh Leib HaKoyen, whose neshama should have an aliyah in Shemayim through the schus of our Torah learning. And we're also dedicating our shir for the Refuah Shlema, the complete healing of Aryeh Leib ben Malka Halevi. His neshama should be strong, and his goof should be strong, his body should be strong, to have many, many more years of health and healing until 120. Amen. Amen. So we're in the Tanya, in the end of the second parak, and we're basically left with a question, which is, if all souls come from Hashem's essence, like we explained, the godly soul comes from the mind of Hashem, Kaviyachol, and Hashem and his thoughts are all one, then it should mean that all the souls are equal. And then we answered that we said that they're not, they're like a body. And different souls have different parts, but we all come from the same source. All the souls are from that pure source. This is going to be mature content today. We're going to ask, based on that, there's a passage from the Zohar, from the book of Jewish mysticism, which implies something very important to think about and consider. Look inside the end of the second parak of the Tanya. Umasha Kosev b'Zohar, in the third volume, Mem Tes Amud Beis, b'Zohar Chodash, Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, two different places in the Zohar, that the Zohar says, Sheha'ikr, the main thing when it comes to having children, and the main thing when it comes to living a holy life, that the main thing in life is that a person should be very careful to have the right intentions when he's having intimate relations. Specifically, that is the moment that matters, when he's giving over that seed. That's the most important thing. And he has to have the right intentions. And really everything is about getting into that right headspace, that a person doesn't lose themselves at that moment and start thinking about inappropriate things, or just that this is only, an animalistic experience. The Gemara compares a person who loses himself in his physical desires, like a lion devouring its prey. That a person can lose themselves, and it becomes not about a bond or a connection, but about just fulfilling a desire or just releasing. So that is very bad. That is not Jewish in any way or any form. That moment, that act is all about bonding, intimacy, connection, making a profound relationship, and essentially two becoming one. That's why all the secrets, and the Zohar does talk about this a lot, that really everything in real mature growth and maturity and understanding Hashem it's a microcosm for that act, because here you have two that can bond in such a way, in such a profound way, where they can become one. And that's essentially an analogy of creation. That the whole goal is for us to realize as creation that us and God can become one. That's why we're like, the Torah is completely into the one thing. Anyone who says God is two is that's so far in the wrong direction. Everything is about one. What about creation? Doesn't that imply separateness? No, even creation and God is one. How do you get there? That's called Kabbalah. That's called Torah, is linking and unifying two as one. Showing that two can become one. That's very powerful. And that's really what the act of intimacy is all about, is the merging of two, where they don't really know where one ends and the other begins, and it's all, there's a merging into one, and being aware of it. That is a very profound thing. So the Zohar says that you have to be very careful during that time to have the right thoughts. What are those thoughts? When you guys become engaged, we'll talk. But until then, it will remain a mystery. But the Tanya is telling us enough that we need to know that in general, it should be holy. They should be mekadeshed. They should be holy. You have to go into this in the right frame of mind. And then it points out, Masha'ein Kain, which is not the case, B'nei Amei Haaretz, those that are born to ignorant people, people that are not trying to sanctify themselves, people that just, they go about, do whatever they want. Okay, let's get together and, let's go to Vegas, hit it off, meet in a bar. Like, that's a great way to start a wonderful relationship. You're both coming off breakups and you meet in the bar and what a wonderful way to really have a meaningful relationship together. That's a great idea. But somehow the world keeps thinking that that's the way to do it, which it's not, my friends. It has to be done with holiness, with the right preparation, with the right intentions. But those people that are not doing that, they just kind of, are coming together, but not in a way of sanctity, not in a way of holiness. So that's not good. Hainu. Why is that not good? Says the Balatanya, Mishum she'ein lecha nefesh ruach neshama. There's no child and the subsequent soul that he receives. She'ein la levush. That's a very important word. There's no child that doesn't have a soul covering that he does not receive. Min nefesh de'atzmus aviv ve'imai. Meaning, the soul, this is so deep, the soul is, we're going to see, coming from Hashem. But the parents give this covering. The covering of the soul is also known as the nefesh ha-sichlis. This extra soul that comes from the parents is an interface between your godly soul and your animal soul. If you want your godly soul, which is always connected to Hashem, to be able to communicate that information to your animal soul, which is basically concerned with becoming an animal and just doing selfish things, then this intermediary layer has to be pure. Where does that intermediary layer come from? Your parents. That intermediary layer comes from the parents. And v'kol ha-mitzvah she'oisa hakol ali de'oisa ha-levush. And all of the mitzvahs that a person's going to do is coming through this cloak. So essentially, let's just try to visualize, but again, there's nothing physical here. This is all conceptual. You have the godly soul, which is your essence. That's the core of who you are. Then you have your animal soul, which is basically this in your blood, coursing around, Nefesh Bahamas, which wants to do what? Go to the Bahamas, wants to all the time just be involved with everything selfish, Mr. I, getting ahead in life, for me, not for somebody else. The godly soul wants to do things for other people, wants a real deep connection and intimacy. The animal soul just wants what's good for me right now. Then there's this intermediary layer that is a spiritual interface between my godly soul and my animal soul, essentially allowing information to pass through. So my godly soul is totally pure. My animal soul is kind of filthy because it wants very selfish things. If I have an intermediary interface which is dirty, will my godly soul have an easy time communicating to my animal soul or no? No. But what if I have, as my intermediary layer, really clean, Gucci, nice, crispy, clean clothing? I'm making fun, But something very nice and clean, then the information of the godly soul will be able to penetrate and go into the animal soul and teach the animal soul what and how to do. This soul also protects the godly soul. If it's a very clean and very pristine intermediary point between the animal soul and the godly soul, then this inner intermediate space becomes a block to keep the godly soul from getting pulled into bad places, especially from maybe potentially averas that he's done in a previous lifetime. Okay. And says the Balatanya, afilu hashefa, even the bracha, even the goodness that Hashem wants to flow down to you, shenoisten loy min hashamayim, that's given to you from heaven, hakol al yedei levush zeh. It flows through this intermediary soul. And if you kaddish es atzmai, if the parents are careful during that time of intimacy, that they're preparing in the right way, in a holy way. So yamshich levush kodesh lenishmas benai. Then the parents will give a holy cloak, a holy intermediary soul for the child. Even if, let's say, the soul itself is a big soul, the biggest, the soul of Avram Avinu, of Abraham, Tzricha l'kiddush aviv, still the parents need to do their best to give the kid a good, clean, intermediary soul in order for that godly soul to penetrate through and affect the physical body. But one thing you see for very clear, and he points this out right here, aval neshama atzma, you should know the soul itself, does that have anything to do with the parents? No. The godly soul itself is right from Hashem, and therefore no matter who the parents were, the essence of his soul is completely pure, comes in the same place of the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu, the same place of the soul of Avram Avinu, the same place of the soul of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rashi, the Ramban, the Rambam, the Baba Sali, this Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Kiva Eger, Pnei Yeshua, the same place, the Shagas Aryeh, the Vilna Gaon, the Ramchal, the same place as those tzaddikim is all of us. The same place. What's the difference? Is the intermediary soul. That's from the parents. This is what he says here. Sometimes you could have this huge neshama, la'ein kates, that you can't even imagine how big this neshama is. For example, Avram Avinu, we'll explain why in a second. Could come be the son of a lowly person, because the neshama itself is from Hashem. Arizal, Kol Zebel Lekutei Torah, Parshas Vayera, Ubetame Mitzvahs, Parshas Bereshis. Like the Arizal explains this. So this is an amazing thing. The Zohar says you should be so careful because everything depends on it. What is the parent giving over? The intermediary soul. But like the Balatanya points out, when the Arizal, the essence of your soul is always from Hashem. You can have huge souls that could come down into the world through not so parents. Like Rabbi Nachman once said, that Mashiach, his parents won't be so It's interesting. Who was the first Yidela? Not a trick question. Avram Avinu. Did Avram come from parents that were so No. To the contrary, he was a Ben Nida, and his father was the biggest idol worshiper in the world. I always imagine Avram Avinu, his father is like, major idol worship, like shrunken skeleton heads and like bones through his neck and like tattoos on his eyeball type stuff. And I imagine like Avram Avinu, like this little 3-year-old boy with little payas, and he wants to take him to Cheder. So he takes shows up with Avram Avinu to Cheder, and like the head of the Cheder is like, sees him like roll up on a Harley. Like, gonna take my son, Abraham? And all the parents are like, oh! And Avram's like this really sweet little boy that he came from, and Terach was like, bah! And take him! I'll black magic you! Like the principal, I don't know. Like, what are the other parents gonna say? Like, it's not you. It's me. I don't. It was like a tough sell. Even though this is Avram Avinu, but his parents were as far as you can imagine, which means that was Avram Avinu's intermediary soul clean or filthy? As filthy as you could imagine. The intermediary soul. This lavush of the nefesh. It was as filthy as you could imagine. It came from a very bad, a lowly place. But you know what Hashem is saying? No matter how filthy the source is, not only can you be great, I get tremendous inspiration from this. Every single day I think about this. Amazing. That the beginning of all of monotheism begins with somebody who received a filthy intermediary soul, and he becomes maybe the greatest person of all time. That's amazing. What a message. Hashem could have made the first Yid, the first Jew, a very, from pristine pedigree. No. He comes from a horrible family situation. Horrible. I can't even get to the details of the things that were going on by his parents at that time. But Hashem is saying, I could send major souls into the world through lowly parenting. And therefore, what's the main takeaway? The Zohar is saying that when it comes to your children, you want to be very careful to give them the best nefesh hasichlis as possible, the best intermediary soul, that they can be successful in mitzvahs, that they'll feel connected. A person who has this soul very from coarse parents means it's sometimes harder for him to connect, harder to feel certain things, even though he's a big neshama. But you know what? To the contrary. Sometimes when a person has to fight through filth, he becomes so big. This is essentially the story of Mashiach. And the Mashiach ben David, a very strange background. We mentioned this in all the Mashiach shiur. Very strange, including strange in the realm of intimacy. Strange thing, Lot and his daughters, and strange things here. And from that comes bigness. And therefore, a person has to know, no matter where and from what he comes from, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Avram Avinu is the biggest, and he had a very filthy soul. Going forward, the Zohar means that you want to give the best to the future generations. But you have to know that the essence of the soul, the godly soul, is only from Hashem. The parents do give that intermediary soul. The parents should be as careful to give their kid as best and as clean an opportunity as possible. But it doesn't matter wherever a person comes from. He could become great, not despite of it, but in many times because of the challenge. Because of that challenge, he could rise up to the highest levels. Rabbi Yisrael, we finished the second chapter of the Tanya. Baruch Hashem, we should be dancing on the rooftops of Yerushalayim. This is so exciting. So Mazel Tov, Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we're going to be beginning the third parak, and then we're going to just be dancing more. The more time you learn, in general, the more you just want to dance. We should be zeichen tomorrow to be dancing on the Shir Tzidkenu. Amen. Have a wonderful day, Chevra.